So we're going to do a still life. We're going to do something like this. We've got a blue flower, green apples, lemons, got a lime in here, and we're going to work this on a green is going to be our subject color, and so everything is working around green, and that's why we're using blue for the flower. We're using brown, a version of brown, and orange for the glass here, and we're keeping the yellow to push the eye towards the green apples, and we're using a pyrrole orange in the background so that the green apples pop. We'll be using a number 12 round, and we'll be using a flat wash brush. It's not a huge brush. It's a 1.5 flat wash. So we're going to start off with the green. We're going to be using some Viridian green to establish our green apples here, and we're going to leave a little bit of a highlight, and we're just going to get the shape in there. We're going to pick up some more of the green. We're going to be just establishing the general area of the green apples. Okay. Alright. And our lemon is over here. Well, it's not a lemon, it's a lime. Okay. And we're going to just get that in there. We don't really care at this point if we get an overlap. Okay. At this point, I am going to go for our blue flower, and I'm going to be using, in this case, it's going to be a phthalo blue, and the flowers are trumpets. I'm going to use trumpet flowers, and so it's going to give us this nice little, there we go, there we go. And we'll get some of this in here, pull it down, and we'll get flower over here. Okay, here we are. Bring it up and bring it down. Okay, and that's all we're going to do. We're just going to pull it to the center, pull it to the center, pull it to the center, and we're done with our flower for the time being. Now we're going to establish the cup in the background with our pyrrole orange. Okay, it's a beautiful, beautiful orange, and so I'm just going to drop this in here like so. Drop this in here. Drop this in the back on the cup. Okay, I'm going to let that set up. I'm going to pick up just a little bit of the pyrrole orange. I know this is going to be in a shadow, but and that's why it doesn't matter if I make it kind of dark. Now at this point I am going to establish the background. The background color is going to be a base lemon yellow, and so I'm just going to get this in here and in here, and I'm just going to work this around. It's going to be a light, sort of a wash of lemon yellow, so I'm going to be using a lot of water. Okay, because I don't want the yellow to overpower this, and so that is why I'm using a lemon yellow. Okay, and I'm going to establish this back here. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Okay, no, and I really don't care if I run into the blue a little bit, because I'm going to wash that blue out a little bit at the end anyway. So I'm just going to establish the background, and because we're painting this on 140 pound, we're going to let this sit. Okay, I apologize. This is not 140 pound. This is 90 pound paper. Okay, now I know I'm going to make this really, really orange, so I'm going to establish the plate, and so at this point I am just going to pull some of that orange into the plate, and now the plate is going to be, I'm going to be using some transparent brown here. I'll be using the color, it's called a sewer brown, and let me get some of that here. and I don't want it too strong, so I'm just gonna, there we go, there we go. Alright, and I'm just gonna pull it around. Okay, bingo. And I'm just gonna pull it around just like so, just like so. Okay, I'm gonna let this plate set up. Alright, I'm gonna give this plate some shape, so I'm gonna clean the center out just a little bit, just a little bit. Okay, and just let it set up. I'm going to run the shadow of the plate off the plate because I'll be adding some blue to this area and picking up, it'll override the plate color, and the shadow will set up just nicely. At this point, I am going to go to work on my lemons, my oranges, in the lower part here. And so I'm just going to run this with some of that lemon yellow, and I'm just going to run this with some of that lemon yellow here. And now I am going to pick up some of the pyrrole, and I'm just going to run this in here on the orange and let that set up in there. There we go, and let that set up over here. Okay, and I'm just going to take a little water and rinse that, take a little water and pull that through there, and I'm just going to let this set up over here. Now at this point, it's too early to work on the plate. I'm going to pick up some more of the Viridian green, and I am going to start to work on these apples. Okay, and I don't really care what happens there because I'm going to let serendipity take over with the lime. Alright, and if you'll notice, I'm pressing the brush down a little bit, and I don't care if it pulls in a little bit of the yellow over there, it's fine. And I'm going to pick up some more of the Viridian green, and I'm going to establish these apples here. Okay, now we're going to let this dry a little bit. Okay, and maybe just for fun I'll pick up a little bit more of this Viridian green, and I'll go to work on this side of the apple. I'm going to turn the paper around a little bit so that the color starts to pool towards this end, and what I'll do is I will use a little tape roll that I have, and I will set it right here so that the paper will sit at an angle and the color will drop exactly where I want it. Okay, for this next part I'm going to make sure I've got plenty of paper towels because I don't want too much water on the brush. So I am going to wipe the brush to get excess water out of the brush, because at this point I want to go right into my green apples, and I am going to be using New Gambogi to establish. It's a very warm yellow, and I'm going to pull this around here because I want to establish some modeling on these apples. I'm going to pull this around here, and now New Gambogi is not necessarily a transparent color, so I have to be very, very careful not to put it on too heavy, because I do want the green of these apples to show through, and so I'm really applying it with a lot of water. And now I said, of course, but I'm not utilizing all the water. I am still dabbing a lot of the water out of the brush. Okay, now this area here is going to be in shadow, and it's because it's green. I'm not going to shadow it. What I'm going to do actually is I am going to use some of the pyrrole orange and a little bit of the cobalt purple to establish a backside. And when this dries, these are both, I'm going to make sure that I don't put it on too thick, because I do want this to, and I'm going to feather it. Okay, there we go. And in this area here in the center, I am going to feather this area. And the red over the green will give me the contrasting roundness that I want and a proper green shadow, actually. Here we go. There we go. There we go. And I'm going to pick up a little bit more of the Viridian, and I'm going to just drop this in here. Okay. Here we go. Okay. I am going to pick up some lemon yellow, and I am going to come over this lime, and I'm going to let that dry and come back in with some green. And I'm just going to drop this in on this apple. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do with this, I am going to use phthalo blue for this tabletop, and it's a very warm blue, and so I'm just going to pull this in here, pull this in here, pull this in here. Okay, and I'm going to come over the shadow area of the plate. Okay, come around like that, come around. Okay, and let's bring this up here. Okay, there we go. There we go. Bring that around. Okay. And phthalo blue is considered what they call a stain color. However, if you thin it out, you can get it to act like a transparent. So, of course, if you use it full strength, then you will get the stains. Now, in point of fact, stain colors are not that difficult to work with. You just need to realize that when you use them, they're not the colors that you're going to be lifting later on. But they do add some really wonderful characteristics to your paintings. And this is just the blue that I want. Okay, because I am going to come into the background here later, up here, and I am going to add some reds and some blues and some greens to this background. But right now I want to set this up in the foreground, and so I'm just going to drop this in here. I'm going to try and get a little full strength, not right in here. Okay, set these up now, and just set these up. Okay, there we go. Here we go. And I'm going to set this up a little bit stronger, because this area here is going to be my shadow. And I'm going to set this bowl up in just a moment. So I might as well go ahead and drop some color into this center area, and along here, and along the spoon, and right in here. And because I want this to dry. Okay, I'm just going to pick up some water, and I'm just going to pull this out. And there we go. I don't want too hard of an edge. And so I'm going to feather this a little bit. There we go. Feather that a little bit. I can see I'm going to get an edge here, and I don't really want that to happen. And that's fine. Okay. Now the plate, I am going to pick up some of this pyrrole. And let's see. Okay. I'm going to come into this. You see, I'm playing with blue versus orange, or the complementaries. And because I'm using a blue flower, well, that is the reason that I am utilizing this orange. And Pyrrole Orange is a fabulous, fabulous orange. It's extremely strong, and so you must use it with a lot of water, or it will take over your painting. But as an effective, it's just a wonderful, wonderful orange. Now, it's still wet here, and I am going to pick up some of this phthalo blue, and I am just going to drop this right in here, just like that. Okay. And I am going to come back into that cup back there, and I am going to pick up some of the Gamboge, and I am just going to drop this right in here along the edge. There we go. And let that dry. Okay, now this spoon here, what I am going to do is I am going to use my translucent brown, and I'm just going to drop this in here, drop this around here, drop this here. Okay, drop that there. While this spoon is still wet, I am going to pick up some ultramarine, and I'm just going to drop it in the bowl, and I'm going to pull it down over the spoon. I may come back and just dry the brush out a little bit and lift some of that blue, and then I'm going to come over here and I am just going to smooth this around. There we go. And I want this to set up really nicely. It's a nice dark edge, so I'm just going to let that sit right there. Okay, now with the common denominator colors in this picture being green and blue, what I need to do is work with colors that accentuate the green and the blue. And in this case, it's going to be the Pyrrole Orange. And so at this point, I am going to be using the flat wash, 1.5 flat wash, because I want to create some interesting background, but I don't want it. But I still want to have some control in getting into and around this blue flower. And I don't want too much water here on this brush. Basically what I really want is to get this color into the background, but I'm not pasting it in there because I still want some of that yellow to come through. But if you'll notice, I am making sure that this orange sets up around the green apples. And the reason for that, of course, is what's known as vibration, whereas basically it means that if I want my central colors to be green and I want that green to pop, I need to surround that green with some degree of red. And in this case, I don't want an obvious red. What I really want is to use this orange. Okay, because this orange, when it's used lightly, is sort of a peach, and I want to keep this painting peachy keen, peachy warm. That's what I want to do. Okay, so now at this point I want to go back into these green apples and I want to accentuate the green. So I'm picking up the Viridian, and now I am going to drop the Viridian in. Okay, it's not full strength, but that's okay because these are apples and I want the colors to work. And I've got a little bit of a run right there, so I am going to pick up the cowl and bingo. There we go. And I am going to use the brush and I'm going to lift some of the water out of that color. Okay. And I'm going to come back in here, get some more of this green, and I'm going to drop this in here. Okay. Here we go. And I'm going to drop it in here. Alright, it's that middle one. Okay, and as far as this this lime goes, I am going to leave that lime alone. What I'm actually going to do is pick up some gamboge, and I am going to drop a lot of gamboge onto that lime. Okay, here we go. Let that sit. Okay, now I'm going to come back in here, and I am going to, I've got to shadow this area, so I'm going to pick up a little bit of the cobalt purple, and I'm going to just drop that in here, and I'm just going to drop that in here and alongside this cup and underneath the bowl. I'm going to let that work. Now I can get to work on the bowl here. Okay, because I've got my colors, and okay, let me confirm. What we're going to do is work the pyrrole orange back here to make the blue pop, and also to make the green pop. So we're going to use the 1.5 flat. We're going to pick up some orange, the pyrrole orange, but we're not going to make it too heavy. And we're going to work this in here. And we're going to work this, we're going to use the edges so we can get into the trumpet flower. Okay, and we're going to, there we go. That's going to make, when it dries, it's going to make the blue pop. But we don't want to be too heavy with the orange at any one point. Now, coming over the green apples, I am in fact going to use a lot more of the orange because it will cause the green apples to pop. In fact, to unify the painting, I am now going to bring some of this all the way around the complete painting to give it a unified effect. Okay, at this point we might want to do something with the cup, and so I am going to use, I'm going back to my round, and I am going to just create this line right here, and I am going to pick up the lemon yellow, and I am going to come back in over here. Okay, give it a little blend, and because I want to warm this cup up even though it's in the background. Now I'm going to come back to the bowl. I'm going to pick up some of the brown with this reflection, and I'm just going to drop this right in here. I'm going to get some more of the Lesueur brown, drop that in there, bring it around up here. I am now going to pick up some of the blue, and I am going to drop this blue into the bowl. Okay, right down here. I don't mind if it runs. Okay, there we go. I am going to pick up some of the orange. I'm going to drop that in there, and now I am going to pick up some more of the blue. I am going to use phthalo blue at this point, and I am going to go back into my trumpet flower, and I'm going to really intensify this blue, because as you know, with watercolor it always dries lighter than when you put it on. Okay, I don't mind if it runs right up in here because this is going to be in the background. I want it to fade a little bit anyway, and I'm going to wait for this to dry, and then I'm going to come back in here. I'm going to use my towel at the moment. I'm going to pick some of this up. Okay, and there we go. There we go. Okay, I'm looking over on this side, and I'm saying maybe I want a little bit something darker here, but I'm going to dry this with the with my dryer. And then I'm going to come back in, and I'm going to accentuate my shadows. At this point, I'm going to pick up some of my cobalt purple, and I am going to work the background a little bit. So I'm just going to brush this a little bit. I'm not going to be too obvious, but I do want this cobalt purple to accentuate the orange a little bit. There we go. There we go. Okay, let me get right in here and pull this around a little bit. There we go. And now I'm going to pick up the Pyro, and I am going to work that around this green apple. Okay. We're going to let that dry. Okay. I am at this point going to work on the shadows. And so I'm going to pick up the phthalo blue, and I am going to line this here, line this underneath this spoon, line this around, line this right in here. And as you can see, it's a very warm blue. It's a stained blue, but it's beautiful. And I'm going to pull the phthalo blue underneath the bowl, and that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to use the point of the round brush, and I'm just going to come in here and in here and here. Now I'm using a warm blue because we're coming forward on the in the foreground, and I'm going to pick this phthalo blue up. I'm going to come around these lemons, and I'm going to the yellow against the orange. I'm working it in the foreground, and I'm just going to pull this out, there we go. I am going to use this phthalo blue as a wash, and that's all I'm going to do. And just add a little water to it and just pull it down. Okay, I've got to work some shadow in here, and I am going to use ultramarine blue because it's in the background. And if that's a little bit too dark, I'm going to add water, and I'm going to pull this around here and pull this around here on the orange cup. There we go. And I am going to work some of the phthalo blue right up in here and pull it down right there. And I'm just going to be a little bit more dramatic. Let's get some more of that blue right in here, using the tip to just drop the color in. Okay, here we go. I am now going to use this phthalo blue as a wash, and I'm just going to come across this side of the bowl. I'm going to use the phthalo blue to come around the edge of the bowl. Okay, come around the edge of the bowl on the inside. I am now going to work on this right in here, dark area. So I'm just going to again drop the cobalt blue, the cobalt violet actually, onto the green, which will give me the kind of a gray that I want. Over here, however, the shadow's a little bit lighter. I am going to actually use the Pyro, and I'm going to drop that right in here. it will still give me a shadow, but not as dark as the one over here. Okay, there we go. Now, I am going to use the point of my brush and the phthalo, and I am going to accentuate this spoon. Okay, and I'm going to just bring it down here, and I'm just going to bring it across. Okay, and when this dries, it's going to be beautiful. Now I'm going to pick up some of the cobalt purple, and I am going to really work this shadow. Okay, really work this shadow. Alright, and I'm going to pick up the cobalt purple, and I'm going to work this shadow. Because it is a transparent purple, the blue is going to show through, and this is going to be a nice warm shadow. And I'm going to pick up some of that cobalt, create a base for this bowl, and that's what I'm going to do with it. Okay, I may need to do a little bit something right in here. I don't want a hard edge, so I'm just going to smooth this a little bit. There we go. I want a little bit more. I think I'm going to pick up some of the Viridian and load this up and come around here, come around here, come around here. Now, because this is the shadow side of the apple, I am actually going to, well, I have a choice. I can use, I think I will use the cobalt violet, and I will drop that in here, and I will work that in here, and when it dries, this is going to be really beautiful. And I'm just using some water to pull this out. Okay, now I am going to use the cobalt and the pyrrole, and I'm going to drop it right in here. Right in here. I'm going to accentuate the shadow right above the lime, and I'm just using the tip to get some color in there. And now I'm just going to work that around. Okay, I did mention that I used lavender on the blue, and so what I'm going to do is I am going to open up the lavender. I'm going to go straight from the tube, and I am going to just pop that up there, and I'm going to pop this up here, and I might just pop a little bit right there. Okay, not enough to really tweak the eye, but enough to just sort of have the eye go back and forth and asking itself, is there another color going on there? Okay, at this point I am going to use get some water. I am going to pick up the new Gambogi, and I am going to warm up this plate. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to warm this plate up. And I'm going to warm this plate up. I want to make this plate so warm because it is in the front. And I want to warm the shadow up. And so I'm going to come over the shadow. And this way, the shadow will be warm and the spoon will be going towards the background. And I want this to really pop. So what I'm going to do here now is I am just going to use the tip of the brush. I am going to pull some of that color out. I'm going to grab my towel, and I am just going to lift that out there. Okay? Okay. When we come back, we're going to wrap this up. So at this point, I want to find out if I think this is all done. So what I'm going to do is I am going to place this mat around it and see if this kind of works, and I kind of think it does. I'm going to try a few other mats. Okay, I'm going to try see how this looks. Actually, it's not bad at all. Yeah, a white mat might work well. Let's see what a red mat looks like with this one. Okay, actually, and a red mat would work pretty good. Let's see what a green mat would do here. Okay, that looks pretty good. Move that around. Okay, let's see what an ecru mat would do. Okay, here we are. This seems to work well. And let's try a black mat. See how that might work. That might work. Okay. And I think I was going to outline the dish in green, but I think I'm going to leave it just the way it is and sign this picture, and it's done.